Let's be honest, there's no guidebook when it comes to relationships. So we end up having to stumble through life trying to figure things out for ourselves. What if there was a podcast that found the answers for you, that provided insight to build a successful relationship and ultimately find the companionship you've always hoped for? Welcome to the Girls Ask Guys show, where we answer the questions most people are afraid to ask when it comes to lessons in life and love. It's time to master this thing called life together with your hosts, John and Ashley.
And welcome back, all of you Gagsters. Today's guest is a transformational relationship coach who specializes in toxic, unhealthy relationship recognition and how to overcome your personal roadblocks to success. He is the founder of Interpersonal Relationship Coaching, and he found at johnkennycoaching.com. So we want to welcome to the show, John Kenny.
Hey, John.
Hi, how you doing? Thanks for the introduction. Lovely to be here.
Oh, not a problem.
Please excuse my husky voice today.
That's okay. I mean, it's one of those things that happens to the best of us.
Yes, definitely.
Just looking at what you have done, because not only are you an author, but you are also a documentarian. So you have documentaries that are out there and on Amazon. You've written books. You're a speaker. So you come here with a lot of experience through working with other people, and something that is a plague in the dating world. People who go from one toxic relationship to another toxic relationship to another toxic relationship, and they don't know why. By having you here, hopefully it can help people shortcut that learning curve and recognize the red flags, or how to recognize if what they are in is another one of those toxic relationships.
Yeah, it's really important, like you said, that you come to some kind of understanding for yourself about why these relationships keep happening in your life, and to recognize those signs before you kind of go too far and get too involved in those types of relationships again. Yeah.
What's one of the ways that somebody can actually recognize if they are in a toxic relationship?
So the first thing I would suggest is just to check in on how you feel. That if you are noticing that you find that maybe being around them is difficult, to check in on your mood. Do you feel drained around them? Is it hard work for you to be around them? And is it something you actually really look forward to? Do you feel like you should see them, or you have to see them? If you can notice that within yourself, then it's likely that it's something that really you need to think about. Is this the right thing for you to be doing? As relationships can actually be quite easy. And if you recognize that this is driving something within you that you might feel quite uncomfortable with, then it's really important that you check in on that to understand whether you might be in the right type of relationship, or whether you're going down that road again into something that's not healthy for you.
Yeah.
I like that. I like the part where you say, like, do you feel like you have to see them or you want to see them? Because there is a big difference. And I think that's something a lot of people in relationships, they feel obligated and they're not so much excited. So I really do like that concept of, like, do you feel obligated to see this person? Or do you want to see this person? Because obligation sometimes is a bad thing.
Yeah, definitely. It's so shoulds, isn't it? One of the first things I learned when I became a therapist was, is it okay to swear on this podcast? Shoulds are shit.
Right.
Because they're your drivers to do things you don't really want to do. So if you're saying I should a lot, then you know that it's not something that you really want to do, and it's an expectation that's either being placed upon you or an expectation you're placing on yourself that you feel like you have to do it, rather than you really wanting to do it.
That actually kind of opens my eyes, because when I think about my past relationships, I would get sick of being around the person and be like, I hate you. Like, I'm only here because I just want to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
I don't even like you. So what's another thing we can recognize, because we have a lot of people who genuinely listen because they need help with their relationship. So I say, let's do 5, let's do 5 signs that you're in a shitty relationship. And, so the first one, ladies and gentlemen, is you hate being around the person you're in a relationship with. Sean, what's number 2?
Probably adds on, it's one of the reasons why you hate being there is because everything is about them.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah. Oh yes, yeah. Every time something comes up, it's well, that's nice, but I did this over here.
Oh my God, story toppers.
Yeah.
Story toppers.
And if you come to them, if they've got a problem, it's the worst thing in the world, and they expect you to be there for them and to help you through it. But if you've got a problem, they're like, well, get over it, or go and talk to someone else, or they're just stop it. They're just not able to show you the same level of understanding or care, or they try and switch it around onto them. Well, if that's like that for you, how do you think it makes me feel? And
right.
Those kind of people, and you can generally tell that they're just not able to be. They're just not able to be open and be there for you, and everything will be about them. they're just unable to put themselves into your space and be the person that will help you to feel better.
Been there, done that. I mean, even at one point in time in my life, I was actually one of those people, unfortunately.
I don't think anyone is above, the selfish idea of life until someone says to you, you're fucking selfish. And that's what it takes, is someone just looking at you and telling you how selfish you are. And then once you understand it, then you either change or you don't. If you don't change, well,
you just don't find someone else to be selfish.
Right. Or find someone who doesn't care about you or who doesn't care about you and they only care about them. Yeah. If they're story topping you or everything in their life is awful and you don't have any problems,
every time you have a bad day, they've had a worse day.
Everything is a thing for those people. And they're like, I just spent 2 hours cleaning my bathroom.
Well, I took out the trash.
Right. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. That's there's always something, isn't there? And it's never really what you need it to be. So it's really difficult to be around them, and it's something to notice that if you come home with a problem, or if you've got something going on, and you recognise that they're never quite there or in that space with you, then it's a sign that they're just never going to get what you want. You're never going to feel happy with them.
Oh my God, I can't. I'm trying to remain as story free as I possibly can.
Yeah, it gives me like.
I've got like all these stories coming to my head.
You've got a massive list of examples, right?
Yeah, it's not all about me. Yeah, unfortunately, what we teach here and what we try to convey to people as to how to meet somebody else, it can be used for good as well as evil. And that's one of the reasons that this discussion here is so important. Hopefully they can see it and recognize it and escape from it before something really bad does happen.
Yeah, because you're looking, aren't you? You're always looking to feel that somebody cares about you. It's a key basic human need, is to be loved and to connect. And if you're not getting that in that space at home, then you will look outside of that to get those needs met.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a kind of a lone person as well, or a shy person. You don't have a good group of friends and a nice community as well that maybe could offer you something more healthy. Then you will look for it in other spaces wherever people offer it to you. I had a client I finished with last year. They didn't really get much from their parents, and they ended up having a relationship when they were 16 with their dad's best friend.
Jesus Christ.
Who was at the time in his late 30s, I think early 40s. And she ended up living with him for about 3 years as well. It was a massively toxic and quite emotionally abusive relationship, because not only did he did he have a relationship with this young girl, he then also had lots of relationships going on the side with other young girls at the same time. And it completely destroyed her as a teenager.
Yeah.
But he obviously saw what she was missing with her own father and started to interact with her in a way which kind of drew into having a relationship with him.
Yeah. And
it's really sad that then she's not had a relationship with anybody since then in sort of 10 years because she's so scared of what that led to for her. And actually it's just been basically sleeping around and having casual relationships and everything meaningless and just destroying herself emotionally because of everything that she's been through.
Yeah.
It all started because she just wasn't shown any kind of love and affection by her dad.
Yeah, and that's where that self-belief and that you are worthy of something greater. And it's extremely difficult to rebuild, to allow yourself to take that risk with somebody else because the damage is so deep.
Yeah.
You just got to grow up with a fear of connection, aren't you? Because you're not going to...
Right.
And the only connection that you know is unhealthy.
Yeah.
So that's what you have a tendency to recreate.
Yeah. Last night, I didn't realize it, but I watched like almost 7 hours, just interviews and discussions on that type of topic.
Yeah, that's a long
It's
time.
draining and not easy.
Sure that just
Yeah, it sounds like torture.
I don't know, you did that for 7 hours.
It's in an area that I'm not that familiar with, so I'm trying to educate myself on it. But I have absolutely no experience in it. I don't know about it. The best I can do is possibly empathize with it. And I will never truly understand it.
You're not supposed to.
If you do come across it, though, in your real life, then at least you know you've got an understanding of it and you might be able to show some different level of empathy and sympathy that maybe helps in those. I don't know, what's that? There was something on Netflix recently. The girl that was raped and she wasn't believed. It was a serial rapist.
And she had to go to court. Yes, I saw that. And then, they had to tell her story a million times.
Yeah, and then she withdrew the accusations, and then she was charged for wasting police time. And it turned out she was one of the first people to be raped of a serial rapist. And then when they finally caught him, they found all these photographs of her. But you can tell by the way... It was like
almost 20 years later.
Yeah, you can tell by the way that she was treated to start with. The complete difference between the police officers that she reported it to, how they treated her, and then they showed you the successive kind of people that were raped, and then how they were then dealt with, and so much more sympathy and empathy, and they, it enabled them to kind of really try and deal with the experience rather than feel that they were wrong and they needed to, then lie about the fact that they said about it in the first place. So being able to be, have some understanding of what these people go through and how you can then be with them to help them get through these difficult circumstances is something that, if you can be armed with that kind of information, it is really good.
That's one of the reasons that this show is so important to me, because I was on the other side. I was that person that learned how to manipulate in order to get what I wanted. It was almost on the level of emotional abuse. I mean, not to the point that it was like permanently scarring, but it was definitely short-term damage.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until one of my exes actually told me, this is what it was like for me, this is how I felt, that I got out of that world. That's why people that do that to people, that's why I want people to recognize, have the tools to recognize and have a resource that they can go to get out of those relationships or to be able to recover from those types of relationships. You have the right to your own happiness, whatever your definition of happiness is.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't hurt someone else in the process.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't hurt somebody else in the process. I mean, that's like that catch-22 area.
I think, unfortunately, though, there's a little, like you said, a catch to that you will sometimes, people will be hurt by the fact that you're pursuing your own dreams. And I think there's a line we need to draw of what's intentionally kind of setting out to hurt people and just saying, you know what, no, you're not going to like this very much, but this is the best thing for me. And, you know, being able to still follow your path to happiness, even though you know at the side of that, some people might not be particularly happy with the things that you're doing.
Well, it's kind of like in order to better your life so you can actually better the other person's life, there are sacrifices that have to be made.
Yeah, I think I've kind of try and shy away from the word sacrifice because then it always makes us feel like we're giving something up.
Right.
It's something I learned, I think it was from Tony Robbins, was the idea that you give because that's the best thing for you. So therefore you care about that person enough to put their needs first. And I don't mean that in a people-pleasing, doing everything they want kind of way. If you're in a healthy relationship, then you can just say, you know what, if that makes them happy, then I am happy, they're happy. Because if I feel like I'm sacrificing something, I don't want to feel like I am giving something up, because then I might then expect something in return, or I might make me resentful. So I just be careful how I
have to agree with that. It's not the best choice of words,
but again, that's the word we use, isn't it?
Yeah,
Right. It's what
almost
we were taught.
Yeah, it's the word that we've just been taught over time.
It's like we use guilt gifts. You know, I sacrificed all this for you. Well, then why? Like, you know, if you knew you were going to be so
I
miserable,
gave this up, so you owe me.
I don't owe you shit.
Yeah.
You know? Instead of saying I did this out of the kindness of my heart. Right. Yeah. I did this out of kindness of my heart. And then not guilting someone by saying, yeah, it hurt me too. Okay. Well, then why did you do it? I didn't ask you to. Don't do things like that. Be reasonable. So we got two super, super important ones. What's the third reason or third way to recognize your relationship?
So I would suggest that this kind of comes into two little parts, maybe. That so there's one I would say that you feel like you're being controlled. So they won't know where you are, what you're doing, but won't tell you what they're doing. They won't know where you spend your money. You're talking to your friends, become protective or maybe seemingly jealous for no kind of reason. And when you think about them, you're not thinking about them in a happy way. You're thinking about, what are they going to say if I do this? How are they going to feel if I do this? And you're constantly second guessing yourself. And that shows that maybe they've got into your head that what you want to do and what you want to say isn't quite right. And that they're going to criticize it, kind of place everything that you do under a microscope. You're never going to feel comfortable with just being you or doing what you want, because you're thinking about what they're going to say and what they're going to do in response or to a reaction to what you're doing. And then you can probably realize that they've got some kind of control over you, because they have actually got control of what you're thinking and got control over what you're doing, because you're hesitant or contemplating because you don't know what they will say about it. So I think if you can recognize that if you're in that kind of situation, that you are actually effectively being controlled and unable to be yourself and do what you want.
That's one of those big warning signs. When I've spoken to abuse victims, that's one of the things that the abuser was actually doing. They had control, not just over their physical being, but their mental well-being as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, they like literally had control of everything.
Which is where all the problem lies in the first place, isn't it?
Right.
It's this, I think a lot of people don't actually realize that people that are narcissists, or even if they're just in a control, like to be in control of a relationship, that some people sort of misunderstand that for confidence. But they're so insecure. This is why all this behavior manifests in the first place.
I've seen it where where the victim actually got an allowance, and
right.
I need an extra.
Could you imagine being grown as fuck and someone giving you a fucking allowance? And you both work?
Yeah, well, one person had control of all the money, and
Absolutely
here's your allowance. I need some extra money. And well, what happened to the money I gave you? Well, I had to buy groceries with it. I had to buy this with it. I bought a new dress. Well, how much was the dress? Did you need that new dress? Or I had to pay for the kids' lunches.
Someone's listening and they're like, that's me. If you're horrible with money, okay, and your person that you're with is trying to save money and you just blow it all the time, this is completely different.
Yeah,
we're talking about legitimate control, not somebody who overspends and their fiance or significant other has to rein them in. So I think we need to have a perfectly good distinction of that, because I'm sure someone's listening and they're like, they always blah, blah, blah. They control my money, but you have 6 maxed out credit cards. You need someone to control your money. I think we're talking in a more abusive setting where you're not allowed to do anything without their permission.
Yeah, they're just watching everything that you spend your money on, and like you said, you have to ask them nicely if you.
Yeah, well, it's a way of enslaving them so that they cannot
when
leave.
You've got kids stuff as well.
Right.
I had a client last year, and she was given an allowance, like you said. And if that allowance ran out, but the kids needed some new shoes or something, say, well, what have you spent the money on? And she said, well, it's gone on the food and this and the other. He said, well, they'll just have to wait for their shoes, won't they?
Oh my God.
And I wouldn't even give the extra money. So then she would have to try and get the money from somewhere because the kids' toes are sticking out the end of their shoe.
And it's her fault when the kids complain. It's a way of controlling so that they do not have the financial resources to leave. Because if you give them too much money, they might actually pack their stuff and go.
That financial control is a big deal.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, that would be one of my lists of why people stay.
Yeah.
Because there is you're often manipulated to that position where you feel like you just can't, and sometimes that financial thing is that reason why you can't.
Or they don't have their documents. That was another one where the person is holding their driver's license or their passports. The documents that they actually need in order to move from one place to another.
Right.
And what happens if you get stopped by the police? One of the first things we ask for is identification.
I would be like, listen, I'm escaping an abusive relationship. Can you take me to a shelter, please? That's exactly what you do. Cops are very understanding to battered people. Very understanding.
A lot of your larger departments actually have specialized sections that deal with that specific type of situation.
Yeah, I've got a friend who works in a women's refuge.
It's no joke.
She just says, if you ever you see anyone that just needs help, just tell them to hightail it out there. There is somewhere they can go. It may not be to start with the most pleasant experience. They may have to sort of share spaces with the people. But it's
it's
short term.
Yeah, it's short term, and they will be able to kind of help them to get themselves back on their feet and into the place that they want to get into. They don't have to stay and put up with it because they feel like there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, and I just want to put this out there because it's kind of been on my mind a little bit. This doesn't just happen to just women. This also happens to men as well. It's one of those that isn't talked about a lot, but it does happen to men as well. If we speak up, society looks at it as a form of weakness.
No, if a woman's beating her ass, she's beating your ass, and it's no shame in it. I think nowadays, now that things are more forward with gay people and all that stuff, it's coming out more. That men are just as much victims as women. The reason, obviously that we have so many more women's shelters than we do men's shelters is because, like you said, back in the day, it didn't I'm sure it happened, but it would never have happened out loud.
It was always everything's behind closed doors, isn't it? And even when I was a kid, it was still seen upon as a bit disgraceful to divorce and things like that and leave and split up. So there was a lot of social stigma, and these things weren't openly talked about. But as you said about men, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I do what I do, is because I was one of the people. I was in two very emotionally abusive relationships.
Yeah, I feel like men get more emotionally abused.
And one of them then turned violent. It turned physical. And luckily for me, not knowing really much what to do at that time, because I was only in my early 20s, I had enough about me to be able to say, well, we've drawn a line here.
Right.
The emotional abuse was bad enough, but when it turned physical, that's when I kind of realised that I needed to get out.
That's good.
Yeah.
And if you are listening and you need to get out of something because it has turned physical, you guys know, I am a full believer that most relationships can be worked out, but if someone's hitting you, once they cross that line, you need to go. You truly need to go, because it's not going to get better. It doesn't get better.
If you want to reach out, you can go to johnkennycoaching.com, and he does have a page on his website that have different resources.
Yeah, it's a good point. There's lots of tips on there, lots of lists and things for helping you to recognise if this is maybe the situation that you're in.
Yeah,
so I haven't got any. You know what? It's a really good idea. I might actually stick some resources as well about where people can contact.
Yeah, and you also have some videos out there that people can watch.
Definitely.
Not only your story, but some other videos as well.
Other stories, yeah. And that's what it's about. It's about sharing your experience and other people seeing the signs. And I guess that's why what you do is so, toxic relationship coaching is so important. Because sometimes you can't really see the forest from the trees, but then you watch a video and you go, oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, that's me.
Well, that's a coincidence.
Yeah.
Well, that's two coincidences.
You just read that list and you say, me, that's me. That's me.
Right.
That's me. That's me. Definitely something going on here.
So number 4, we've got hate the person you're with. They try and control you, they're financially controlling over you. So number 4.
So something to look out for is when you first meet one is how full on they are in a relationship. Generally someone that is going to look to manipulate you will buy really quickly in your life. They want to be a part of it really quickly.
That's really good one.
They want to ask a lot of questions about you, and maybe they won't tell you a lot about themselves. But then obviously on the other hand, there are those other ones that are quite manipulative that actually have a bag full of sad stories about themselves too. And so therefore they may kind of play the victim with you and try and get you to feel sorry for them. But there's a lot of this manipulation stuff is people want to find out about you, so then they can find out what buttons to press.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's...
So if they know that you've struggled with relationships in the past, then they'll bank that information and they can use that against you in the future, because they know how to draw you and keep you in the same sort of space, because you've basically told them everything that they need to know, shown them everything.
Right, you've given them all the ammunition they need just to kind of ruin you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's important to really set the pace and set the boundaries when you meet someone. And if you feel that they're moving you too fast, then, it's a good sign just to take a step away and say, okay, what's that about? Why are they trying to buy into my life too much? What have they not got a life of their own? Because again, generally you'll find that someone that's either especially narcissistic or they've got toxic relationships, they don't have many close relationships of their own, and then you become their focal point. They'll drop everything else to be with you because they really have nothing else going for them. They just will obsess, and that's all that based in their insecurity and trying to find something and cling on to it and make sure it fits with what they want. So just be really aware of someone who wants to move in within a couple of weeks or talks about getting married, or just basically asks you far too many questions and doesn't talk about themselves too much.
Yeah.
But then again, on the other hand, just be aware of the fact that if they ply you full of sad stories about their lives, again, they may be trying to look for your sympathy in order to kind of get you to buy into their needs. And then they'll have you living like that all the time, trying to meet their needs all the time and make them better.
that just hits home with me, because that's that asking a lot of questions but not sharing a whole lot is a classic pickup artist technique.
Yikes.
That's where that using it for evil comes into play. There's a lot of people out there that went through, they took a couple of courses, started their own course, and it just kind of perpetuated itself. Instead of controlling itself, it just perpetuated itself. And you get a lot of these different little groups out there. It's pretty much the manipulator is training the next manipulator, and that guy is actually better than his predecessor.
But it seems really driven by just ulterior motive, isn't it? It's not driven by authenticity.
Unfortunately, I have to agree. I mean, and that's why I got out of it. And I still do coaching, but I'm very selective over who I coach, because I will not coach a manipulator. I don't want to demonize the entire industry. I mean, there are some very good coaches out there. That's not my intention. I don't want to demonize the entire industry. But if you're looking at taking that route in order to better yourself for meeting somebody, just be very aware of who you are going to be paying your hard-earned money to, because it's not cheap. But be aware of who you're paying your money to and whose advice you're going to be taking.
Yeah. Definitely. So what I work with my clients is, I think it's all about authenticity. It's not about playing a game at all. It's all about just being confident and comfortable with who you are, and putting that part of you out there and that energy out there. And then if you meet somebody and they buy into your authentic self, you know they're buying into you because they like who you are, not who you're trying to be.
Thank you. Exactly. Because that's when I really came into my own and I stopped playing the game, I was a lot more successful.
Right. Imagine that.
Go figure. Duh.
That's so much sense, doesn't it?
You mean if you act like a human, humans will respond to you in a positive manner? It's crazy.
Yeah. I think it is. And then, having that idea that you are out there and you're being yourself, and that everybody that you're attracting to you is actually buying into you, will enhance your sense of confidence. It will help you to feel that you are, especially if you've struggled with things in the past about yourself. Once you, like you said, go on that journey to discover who you really are and put that person out there on display in a way where you feel comfortable doing that, and then people will start to reciprocate and like that person. That compliment commences of that confidence you already feel, and you know that these people are in your life because they really are going into the person that you are.
And that
it's an amazing feeling once you get that into that part.
And that you do deserve to pursue your own happiness, and you do deserve to be treated well, and that you do deserve to be treated like a human being.
A good human being. Not like a war criminal.
Yeah, you're not a trophy.
You have what you want by being you.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not arm candy. You're not a trophy. You're not meant to be paraded around.
If you want to be,
if you want to be, that's fine. If that's your definition of happiness, then by all means. But if that's not your definition of happiness, you don't want to be paraded around. And in a way, you should feel that way, but you shouldn't be treated that way.
Right. There's a perfectly valid aspect to a transactional relationship like that. We've talked about that before. How some relationships are, hey, I'm really rich. Hey, I'm really pretty. You want to get married? Yeah, let's get married. And they're happy because that's all they want. But if you want something deeper, or you want something emotionally connected, then you have to deal with your emotions. I mean, maybe they like those relationships because they're so easy and because they don't have to do all this work. But I personally like relationships that are deeper and emotional because I do have to do all this work. I have to look at myself. I have to, grow a self-esteem, so to speak. And I have to really, really be my own happiness, really.
Definitely. You need to be able to look yourself in the mirror and know that you're in your space. and be happy with that space, and not let anybody feel like you need to be anything else but that, and allow anybody to take you out of the space.
Right. Okay. So, last one. We're kind of running. Yeah,
So
we're kind of gone over time here, but I mean, it's a good topic.
So let's just quickly, just to just be aware of what's going on in your body. So there's a couple of things here. So we talk about gut instinct. Sometimes your gut instinct can mislead you because it could be your old patterns of behavior and your ways of relating, which is telling you to buy into a relationship based on your past. But there are some times when you just do need to listen to your gut. If it's telling you that this is the wrong thing for you to do, then it's to go with that kind of feeling. And another thing is to just look at your physicality. So if you are in a toxic relationship, generally you're going to be in stress a lot of the time. And there will be some things that will happen to your body if you are constantly living under stress. So you could experience digestive problems. You'll feel tired or worn down a lot of the time. Your hormones could be all over the place. You could start getting autoimmune diseases because of the amount of toxins and stuff that are actually being released into your system. Do you have headaches because your muscles are tight all the time? And just to be aware of that. So if you find that you've changed, if you're struggling with physical things that you never used to struggle with, or if you get a reoccurrence of certain physical...
that's those stress factors that can manifest themselves. It's amazing how much that can actually take a toll on your body. Toxic relationships, if you look at the physicality differences between a person who was in a combat zone and a person who went through an abusive or an emotionally abusive relationship, the signs medically are very, very similar.
Yeah, because they're experiencing a lot of that traumatic stress, aren't they? It's saying maybe not at the sort of level of arousal that would be in a combat situation, but a prolonged exposure.
Yeah, it's prolonged exposure.
Well, John, both Johns, I guess. It has been wonderful. It's very good to have an expert on this topic, guys. If I were you, I would go, and this isn't necessarily for the coaching. Just check John out and understand he knows what he's talking about. I mean, not only has he been through it, but clearly he's been studying it for years and years and years. And I'm talking about John Kennedy, and I guess both Johns, really. The thing is this, though. I want to make, and we usually, as you know, we look through both sides of the spectrum. I want to make something clear. There's a difference between being abused and an abusive person and someone who's willing to listen.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, isn't it? It's about finding your space within that relationship and seeing what the people do with your space. Unfortunately, what happens with the toxic type of relationships is we have a tendency to step too much into someone else's space and meet their needs. But again, as I mentioned, I think right at the very beginning, that might also have something to do with our own upbringing, where we have our own maladaptive needs and where we're used to buying into that unhealthy side of things. So if we can understand ourselves and what we really want and what we need from a relationship, and then we find our space in that, and then see if those people are able to step towards us and give them the opportunity to do so. And if they won't do that, then you're definitely right there. It is time to walk away, or put yourself into a situation in your own mindset where you're comfortable. Because if it's not a partner, it could be a family member. And sometimes we don't walk away from family members, no matter how toxic they might be. But it's about you being as healthy as you can possibly be in that environment.
So if you are listening to this and you do want to reach out to John Kenny, you can go out to his website. It's johnkennycoaching.com. And like I said, he has some resources on there and some videos that you can take a look at. He does have a book out.
You can always download a free sample of it on Kindle.
Yeah, it's called People Program. I'll put a link in there because the People is an acronym, but I'll put a link in the show notes that people can click on along with your website. You're also available on Facebook and Twitter. You do have a YouTube channel out there, so people want to take a look at that as well.
Yeah, there's a dedicated page on my website for the YouTube channel as well. And there's also the links to my Facebook and Twitter on the website. So you can access everything that I do by going to the website.
Yeah, so the best resource to go to would be his website. Also, the documentary, I know we just kind of glanced this over really quick at the beginning, but I do want to put this out there that you do have a documentary. Okay. It is on Amazon. So if you have Amazon Prime, you can get it there. And it's called Forget Me Not.
That's right. Yeah. You can watch the trailer if you want to from the website. So just click on the tab and it says Forget Me Not. But I am going to put the trailer onto the homepage.
Yeah, you are a documentarian. We mentioned that at the beginning. I want to make sure that they can actually view it. I really do appreciate this. There are so many people out there that they are probably remaining silent and they're afraid to speak up. I'm not sure of the situation they could be in. They could be scared to even send out a tweet for fear of being found. For everybody out there that is in these situations, or if you don't want to fall back into these situations, here is a resource that you can reach out to and hopefully prevent it from happening again and to better your own life. So I do appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. I'm always really happy to spread the word and to help as many people as we can.
That's all for this episode of the Girls Ask Guys show, where all of us learn to master this thing called life together. For more answers to your questions on life and love, be sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss a single episode. And head to girlsaskguyshow.com to submit your questions for a future episode or apply to be a guest on the show. Good luck out there, and we'll catch you next time, right here on the Girls Ask Guys show.